If you like what you hear in this episode, please follow the Ohio State University Inspire podcast on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And to sign up for our email with related stories and resources on our topics, see the link in our episode notes.
When my colleague Matt Sopelsa and his wife Maddie drive around Columbus area neighborhoods, earnestly trying not to spend money so they can save up to buy their first house, they play a little game. It's free, if disheartening.
If we see a for sale sign, we'll guess the price and then look it up.
Yeah, they used to list the price. I don't think they do that anymore.
No, you have to Google
it's
it.
It's such a turnoff, right?
I know, yeah.
Matt and Maddie, who recently had their first child, would like to buy a home before their boy starts kindergarten. To most people not in the market for a house, that goal seems achievable. However, when they do Google that list price, Matt and Maddie are stunned. At least, they used to be.
It doesn't feel like we're asking for a lot, and it's still how on earth are you supposed to afford that? It's not a mansion. We're just asking for an extra bathroom and, a spare bedroom. We were kind of sold this thing of get your college degree and you'll be able to buy a house. And it's well.
In September, the median price for an existing house in the United States, not a new build, was $415,200, according to the National Association of Realtors. That's down a bit from the previous quarter, but is still nearly 3.5 times what it was in 2000. Yet median household incomes during that same time have only doubled. And that has millennials and Gen Z feeling squeezed out of what once was considered a requisite for achieving the American dream.
I'm on Zillow worrying about my heart. Interest rates climbing the charts. I must stay one. $1 million for what? It needs a lot of work and it don't even have a backyard or a garage. Neighborhoods are
90% of people can't even stare down a mortgage every single month without thinking, how am I gonna freaking pay this?
When we got out of college, we had to rent so we could theoretically save money to eventually buy a home. Except rent is so astronomical that we are actually not able to save for a home.
If you look at the price of houses relative to incomes, basically homeownership has become a pipe dream for young people. Gen Z and millennials have been pretty much sequestered from any hope of owning a home.
In 1980, the average age of new homeowners was 29. Now, it's 38. Are millennials and Gen Z putting off owning their own slice of Americana? Or are they simply redefining the goal? In this episode of the Ohio State University Inspire podcast, we unravel modern complexities of buying a house for the first time. Has renting become a better option? And shouldn't home buying be as easy today as it was for older generations? Our experts weigh in and offer tips and resources that can make realizing the dream a little more achievable. I'm Robin Chenoweth. Maya Stepnick is our student intern. Inspire is a production of the College of Education and Human Ecology. Matt Sopelsa and his wife, Maddie, have been trying to save for a house, but they feel like they're a long way from being able to begin a serious search. Matt, by the way, is a web communication specialist in the college who is currently renting.
It's always been on our mind. Even before we rented this place, when we found out we were pregnant, we were kind of tossing around the idea of buying a house, just based on the fact that, I grew up here. And looking back and asking my parents what they paid for and where we lived and seeing those places now. We grew up in Clintonville briefly, and looking at houses there is just, unless you want to live in a Pop-Tart box house. For a first-time home buyer, at least, it's a little daunting.
Or what are you thinking? Well, like a $400,000 house?
That would be the tippy top of our range that we could probably, but yeah, that's average for what we're looking for, like a 3 to 4 bedroom with more than 2 bathrooms.
The Sopelsas want another child and would like their kids to each have their own rooms. Matt works from home several days a week, so he needs office space. As house prices increase, they're afraid they won't be able to afford upgrading to a bigger home later.
I feel like if people think that they are going to make this purchase, it needs, like, they're not going to be able to do it twice.
So this purchase has to be right. As a point of comparison, we looked up the Clintonville house his parents bought just before Matt was born. It's a quintessential 1920s two-story, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, 1,400 square feet, a front porch, and nice backyard. His parents paid $87,600 for the house in 1991. Last year, it sold for $452,000, $33,000 above the asking price. That's an increase of 416% in his lifetime.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm sure they've upgraded it, but, it used to have orange shag carpet and a toilet in the middle of the unfinished basement, no door or anything, just kind of a floating freestanding toilet.
Yeah, a lot of Clintonville houses have those still, mine included. Can I play a TikTok reel for you?
Yeah.
This influencer is bringing up the pushback that millennials and Gen Z are getting from older generations, who say they didn't spend money on things like streaming services, therapy appointments, vacations, concerts, and lattes. Let's listen to realtor Freddie Smith.
This is the biggest misconception plaguing the people under 40 in this country. The reason they can't afford homes is because homes in the past 5 years went from $250,000 to $420,000. In 2019, you only needed $50,000 in salary to qualify. Now, in most cases, you need $120,000. So you got to think about the average millennial and Gen Zer. They have $60,000 of student loan debt, car and credit cards, and they're trying to save $60,000 more for a down payment on a house. That is a huge feat for someone making $58,000 a year with these high rent prices and high grocery prices. So even if they took out all this fun and saved $10,000 a year, it would still take them 12 years to pay off that debt and save for a house. So if they know it's going to take 10, 12, 15 years to do this now, they're going to sacrifice in smaller increments. So if a millennial is lucky enough, which many don't, to have an extra $500 at the end of the month, they'll put $300 towards their debt, but they're going to spend the other $200 on brunch and a Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you have to say about all that?
I totally agree. There was a thing a while ago, kind of in the same vein of somebody talking about, like, well, the reason millennials can't afford housing is because they eat too much avocado toast. Or they were also talking about Starbucks lattes. Everybody was buying lattes. And somebody did the math, and they're like, even if you had a latte every day for a whole year, that would be less than $5,000.
Actually, I did the math too. Even if you bought a venti spiced pumpkin latte, the biggest and most expensive latte that Starbucks offers, each day of the year, and then stopped, you would only save $2,457. It's not nothing, but it's not a down payment in today's market either.
So, yeah, I mean, there's no way.
But for most families, it is the biggest purchase of their life.
Cecilia Loibel is chair of the Consumer Sciences program in the College of Education and Human Ecology, and director of Ohio State's Extension Housing Counseling Program, which advises Ohio residents. Home buying is a longtime focus of her research.
It worries me for an average family to afford a $600,000 home if you are not a doctor or a lawyer. I just wonder how they do it.
Loibel collaborates on research with Stephanie Moulton, a professor who studies housing and urban economics, consumer finance, and financial inclusion in the John Glenn College of Public Affairs. I asked Moulton about what TikToker Freddie Smith said about who can get a mortgage loan.
He says in 2019, you needed only $50,000 in salary to qualify. Now, in most cases, you need $120,000. Is he accurate?
So he's right that house prices have increased tremendously. And with that increase in house prices, the ability to afford the mortgage payment associated with that house price requires a higher income than it used to. They actually need more income today to be able to qualify for a mortgage than they did before because those house prices are going up. So it's not just something they feel, it's actually very real.
It's not just lattes and avocado toast, in other words.
Lenders are going to look at this when they decide whether to approve somebody for a mortgage. They're going to look at that debt to income ratio. So the ratio of the payments on the mortgage that are associated with that house divided by the income. And as that house value goes up, those payments get bigger. It pushes somebody to this point where they can no longer qualify for a mortgage. So not only do they feel like it's too big, they're just not going to be able to qualify for a mortgage because those prices have risen to a point where they can't afford the mortgage anymore.
Data backs this up. The 2025 Housing Affordability and Supply Report by the National Association of Realtors says that since March this year, households earning between $75,000 and $100,000 can only afford 21% of the homes on the market. But pre-pandemic, this same group of middle to middle-high income earners could afford almost half the houses on the market.
Now, the causes, I think, are complicated. Like, there's a lot of factors at play that are driving up house prices. One being, again, limited supply of housing.
Remember your Gen Ed economics course. Decreased supply creates increased demand, which drives up the price people are willing to pay. Also, people got record low interest rates during the pandemic, and some got forbearance benefits. These people are staying put, not selling. This creates an even tighter housing market.
At the same time, the unemployment rate is still relatively low, and people, they're not experiencing the kind of financial distress that we experienced, for example, around the Great Recession.
The financial crisis of 2008 and 2009.
But I think we're still seeing a more tightening of the belt and difficulty being able to afford that payment that's associated with these houses that are now more expensive today than they would have been years ago.
The scrimping begins, or it should, when wannabe home buyers start squirreling away for a down payment.
We've cut back on groceries, eating out. We haven't actually traveled in a while. I have a freaking coffee machine at home, so I don't buy coffee out of the house. I will admit that we do get avocados, but we do get them from Costco. And I don't want to sound ungrateful because at the end of the month, we are able to save something, right? But it's not nearly enough to save up for a down payment on a freaking house.
Rents are high. Graduates are repaying student loans, making car payments. The industry standard for mortgage down payments is 20%, but many first-time home buyers can pay just 3%, experts say. More about that later. But the less you put down, the more you have to finance.
So instead of financing $400,000, I can only finance $300,000 because that's the only mortgage payment I can afford. Guess what? You're going to need $100,000 then as a down payment to get you to that, right? So you didn't need the $100,000 necessarily because the lender said, hey, you need 20% down. No, you really probably only need 3% down. However, and if the house that you're looking at is more than that, you're going to have to cover that difference in order to get you to that mortgage that you can afford.
All of which is why many millennials like Matt Sopelsa are renting into their 30s, and Gen Z is following suit. No worries about property tax increases or unexpected house repairs.
If, a toilet blows up, you gotta fix that.
And then you're on YouTube trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that nobody wants that.
For some people, including those moving or traveling a lot, renting is more viable, says Cecilia Leubel.
It's a really important aspect to buy or to rent. And considering the different markets across the United States, to really look into renting and see what you can rent with the funding you have available, compared to always just focusing on buying. One of my students did a paper on it, comparing opportunities to rent versus buying at different zip codes, different locations. And it's quite interesting what quality of housing you can rent more cheaply at a lower price compared to buying, which would stretch out your budget a lot. Back home in Germany, I'm on a advisory board at the German Institute of Economic Research, and they just shared a new large research project also on buying versus renting in Europe. So it's also a topic there, even though, especially in Germany, much fewer people own their home. And renters are way more protected because so many people rent from a legal perspective.
But if that white picket fence and backyard garden are part of your American dream, If you want to customize your kitchen or paint the walls any color you choose, sink yourself into a community and build equity while you make payments. There are ways to get there. And so Loyable helped me assemble some experts to guide you.
My name's Erin Higgins. I'm the residential lending section chief at the Ohio Housing Finance Agency.
I'm Melissa Roop, and I am assistant professor of family consumer sciences, and I'm an extension educator in Fulton County, but I serve on the statewide team under Dr. Loyble. I'm a certified HUD housing counselor. I won't say that purchasing a home at one point was a rite of passage or just a typical thing we did, but now I think it's a very intentional strategy with our budget and our finances. We have to be very intentional and goal-oriented to achieve that place of financial stability. There was a young man that I worked with, and I asked what steps he was taking towards buying the home because he came in for homebuyer counseling. And he says, well, I just thought it would just kind of happen. I says, well, what part of just happening, was going to work for you? And it really took him that moment to step back and say, I've done nothing to intentionally prepare for homeownership. It was a sweet and kind of a sad conversation, but I could see the light bulb happen that I have to make changes if I want these things for my life and my family.
Let's talk actionable steps that you can take to be able to afford a home. Number 1, improve your credit score.
Your credit, it matters. It really makes a big difference in what you can afford because the lower your credit score, the more expensive your rate.
Higgins is talking here about the interest rate on the mortgage. The higher the rate, the more you pay each month. Plus,
the higher your rate's going to be, the higher your mortgage insurance is going to be.
PMI is private mortgage insurance, which protects the lender if you default on the loan. You must pay for PMI if your down payment is less than 20%. And if your credit is bad, your premiums are higher. So credit matters. So maybe that's where someone could start with cleaning up their credit for several years, socking away money for a down payment.
Cleaning up your credit, which is the number one thing you can do because that can add $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 to the price that you're paying over years on this loan just on a few credit points. So it's really worth looking at and looking at that credit score and credit report.
Number 2, yes, this is the unpleasant part. Get on a budget.
The bigger factor, I think, is putting themselves on a budget and living within the means.
This is training that Matt Sopelsa feels like his generation somehow missed.
It feels like there's a lot of aspects of our education that feel lacking. They always say, I don't know how to do my taxes, but I can tell you the mitochondria is the powerhouse of a cell. And we have all this knowledge, but nobody ever told us about
the practical things. Certified housing counselors and state agencies like the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, or OFA, offer free services to teach you practical ways to save for a house, get approved for a loan, and then comfortably make the payments.
And it sounds cliche to say that, but I do housing counseling through OFA and through the university as well. And I meet people for the first time and I kind of know what my budget is. I kind of know. But when we're talking about these prices and the salaries, and we want to budget about 30% for housing, we have to be intentional with building that budget and understanding where your cash flow is going to happen and train yourself, if you will, to live within that means so that you can achieve that.
Categorizing expenses in a spreadsheet somehow makes it more real. It's not so much about buying the latte, but planning when you will buy it and how often. Every dollar you can throw at a down payment is money that you won't have to pay interest on. Budgeting will also help you build reserves for plumbing emergencies and roof repair that are sure to happen.
What I love about our counseling that we do, it is over the phone. So they don't know me, I don't know them. It's like letting somebody look at your underwear drawer, right? I mean, it's a little personal. And so to let them open up and say, this is what we make, this is what we spend, this is what we do, it feels very personal. And sometimes it feels, maybe they feel even judged. If you choose to spend X number of dollars on recreational items that I wouldn't choose to spend money on, that's your budget. That's your choices. I'm not going to tell you how to do anything, but we're going to look at it. If someone's saying, I'm not ready to buy a house, but I am ready to get my finances in order, call your local extension office and we'll get you plugged in.
Number 3, claim the resources available to you. Here's some good news. States and municipalities benefit when the residents own homes. So in Ohio, if you make up to 120% of the median household income for your area and are buying your first home, assistance programs might help you get in the door. Other states and agencies offer similar programs.
At the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, we offer down payment assistance to low to moderate income borrowers. We offer 3% down for if they're doing a conventional loan and 3.5% if they're doing a government loan, because those are the minimum required down payments for those programs.
So you're offering the down payment to those home buyers?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Do you think, I don't know that many people know that's an option.
Well, you would think we're out there all the time that everybody knows, but they don't. We've done a record year. We just ended our fiscal year on June 30th. We approved close to 6,700 home buyers.
Let's do the math again. If OFA provides assistance to buy a $200,000 home, the typical purchase price the agency approves, it gives between $6,000 to $6,500 for a down payment. But in some areas, like parts of Franklin County, the agency has approved assistance for houses costing $500,000. That could mean $15,000 for a first-time buyer. Income limits and price limits vary from county to county. Adding your own savings to that down payment will lower your monthly payment even more. But 3% is a good start, experts say.
The industry standard is 20% down, and you're looking at a $240,000 home. If you do 20% down, you're well over $40,000. How many people save $40,000 in preparation for that? And if you don't, then you have the PMI that adds to that expense.
$100 and private mortgage insurance that you need to pay if you don't have 20%.
20% is what you put down if you don't want to pay private mortgage insurance. I've been doing mortgage loans for 40 years, and the majority of people don't have that kind of money. And I think that they don't know that there's other options available. You can do a conventional loan and put 20% down, but you can also do a conventional loan and put 3% down. Obviously, with the less money you put down, the higher your mortgage payment's going to be. There's a lot of misconceptions too that you have to have all this money down, and you really don't. But you do have to qualify.
Sadly, the American dream always has been elusive for some people. Government programs redlined communities beginning in the 1930s, denying mortgages and insurance to Black and brown people. The practice is now outlawed, but still impacts homeownership.
The National Mortgage Bankers Association has been very invested in trying to increase ownership among Black people. There's not as many Black people that own homes as white people.
How much does generational wealth factor in?
When we think about safety nets in our lives, having that generational wealth behind you, and I didn't come from what I perceive as generational wealth, as we lived in a family at a poverty level, in a farming community, but I knew that I had people behind me that if I fell off the budget, that I could maybe lean on someone a little bit until I got on my feet. But just having that ability to leverage a resource to get to a tight spot, right? And so we're talking about families that did not have that ability to build that because of some of our laws and things that were set up in a way that didn't allow everyone equal access to the same types of services and opportunities. It was, 1974 when women could get credit for the first time.
What?
Without
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Do the research. It's amazing.
That was 50 years ago.
Yes. If you did not have a male in your family, a father, a husband, a brother, someone that would step up to sign with you or for you.
You couldn't buy a house.
You couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so when you think about generational wealth and how many people, and I'm not going to say just in minority families, but are single parent-led families of the female gender. So we've made changes on our laws and societies over the last 40 years that have really opened the doors. But this is new. I mean, it's my lifetime. When I think about these new families starting, they have new opportunities open, and we have services like OFA and other opportunities, and we have access to education to teach on how to approach these. So I think it's not all dark and grim. We have opportunity, and that's a beautiful thing if we embrace it.
Maybe the American dream is still being redefined. Some people now build wealth in other ways, finding fulfillment outside of owning a home. Others still struggle to be included. But Matt Sopelsa remains hopeful.
Someday, maybe it might happen. But maybe it's not like a requirement of the American dream anymore. Maybe it's like the icing on top at this point. Like if you're able to do that, more power to you.
Where do you see yourself in, let's just put it in 5 years, because you talked about 5 years being the point, where you want to try to figure out what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Do you have a scenario and a B scenario?
Like our dream scenario, what we'll call our A scenario, is maybe, the market takes a turn, or we have a turn of events in our lives that allow us to have some extra money to throw around or save or something. And, we can put a down payment in a very reasonable home, somewhere that we'd want to stay for a long time, in a school district that our son can go to his whole school career. And the B scenario is, maybe just finding a place that might need some work. We would need some sort of starter. The renting's working out well for now, but I think ultimately we both want to work towards having something.
And maybe you're going to be plastering walls and...
Yeah, who knows? I'm going to be watching a lot of YouTube videos about how to... what wires to cut and not to cut.
Matt, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And there's actually something to it. There's a sense of accomplishment and achievement.
Yeah.
I feel like I can see you doing that. Maybe B scenario is not so bad.
B scenario might not be so bad.
To learn more about resources available to first-time homebuyers, veterans, and military families, see the link in our episode notes.